It's an important way of outreach, outreach to a larger community, to a larger audience about the importance of corporate responsibility and what it means also for the average citizen, to the average person on the street. How is this relevant? How is environmental and social performance of business important to me as an investor, as a consumer, for example? It's a very interesting discussion because we talked about corporate responsibility or corporate social responsibility in Africa and the role that corporations can play in African countries, some of which are poverty-stricken and among the least developed countries in the world. And in contrast to many other places where corporations operate, I think corporations have two roles in Africa, operating in Africa. One is, of course, being responsible corporate citizens, acting responsibly, aligning their operations with environmental and social principles like the ones that the Global Compact advocates. But the other side is that businesses can make a larger contribution to development that is so much needed on the African continent. So through partnership with other actors, NGOs, governments and others, they can really make a contribution to economic development of the entire region. They create employment. Ultimately, it's business that is responsible for wealth creation. And so we always say business has a very, very strong role to play in Africa. Because they create employment, because they generate economic opportunities, they contribute to economic growth, but they have to do so in a responsible manner, based on universal values. And I think that was part of the discussion, to really understand what CSR in Africa is all about and what the big challenges are. It really depends on the sector that the company operates in, because obviously some business sectors face more difficult challenges than others. It also depends, of course, on the country and what the political circumstances are. So for any company planning an investment, there should be a careful risk assessment. What are our operational risks? And part of that risk assessment should be a careful assessment of environmental and social risks. Do we run the risk of being complicit in human rights violations? Is there any way that our operations could exacerbate an existing armed conflict? These are all the questions that businesses need to weigh. And then from that risk assessment, they need to come to an impact assessment and how, if they decide to go ahead with the investment, they can actually mitigate or avoid being drawn into any kind of problems. It goes back to the old question of short-term profits versus long-term profits. I think we increasingly live in a world where many indicators show that the obsession with short-term profits has failed. And the financial crisis and the fallout from the financial crisis is probably the best expression of that. So we need to move to a new paradigm of long-term value creation, sustainable value creation. And our point has always been there is a strong business case for being a responsible business, either through the risk management lens or through the economic opportunity and value creation lens. So those are not mutually exclusive categories. You can be a responsible business and can be very profitable at the same time. I think it's important for younger people, for students, to understand that there is this alternative, that there are other ways of achieving your objectives that are not the typical hard power options, the coercive options that everybody is familiar with, but that there are ways through cultural diplomacy, and this is what this symposium is all about, through cultural diplomacy to exercise soft power and contribute to a better understanding between cultures, peoples, and also to a better interdependence of economies.